Can I go?
Give me a few seconds.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can't share my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. Oh wait, no, Dee Dee's host, I think.
Yes. We should be good to go now.
There we go. Thank you. All right.
All right, everyone. Hope you're all having a great morning and you're awake and ready to start making apps. If you joined recently, please make sure to download Android Studio or Xcode. Android Studio if you want to make like Android apps, and Xcode if you have a Mac and you want to make iOS apps. This will help us later on in the workshop when you actually get to it, and it's kind of like a big download. And also download Node.js. You just Google where to download Node.js and you'll get it. And I'll send this link again. So yeah, that'll get you set up while we talk about the basics. Oh, sorry, that's my Google talking.
Also, you should download the appropriate emulator. I don't know how it works for iOS, but for Android, you have to like download like an AVD or like a virtual device. So I would download that too. Let me go. All right, 1 second. Let me go. So if you guys go here, this has all the setup in the world that. Oh, how do I go to chat? I don't use Zoom. Here, go here. That has all the setup you need. Make sure you specify React Native CLI Quick Start. And if you don't have anything installed, I think Android Studio, the setup for that one is significantly faster just because everything is just smaller. That's it. And yeah, okay, back to the presentation.
And if you aren't able to get this stuff set up, don't worry. We'll be online for the next a while, so we can help you after the workshop as well. All right, to get started, what is mobile app development? So when you're developing an app, you have two sides that you could go about it. You can make an iOS app for iPhones, or you can make an Android app for the Android OS. And when you're making an iOS app, usually you're using Swift or Objective-C, and you have to have a Mac, you have to have Xcode downloaded, all that stuff. And for Android, you'll probably be coding in Java and XML for like the styling, all that kind of stuff. But what we're going to be doing today is React Native, which is cross-platform. So the hardships with doing Android and iOS separately with like Swift and Java is you have to have two separate code bases. And usually when companies are like making apps, you want them to look the same. And so you'll be coding two separate things to be trying to make them look the same and make sure they do the same thing. And when you get an error in one place, you're like, oh, is it also in Android or is it just in iOS? You run into all those issues. So cross-platform React Native is just one code base. So you write your code and it's able to compile and build in both iOS and Android. So that's the benefits of it. And that's what we'll be doing today. And a couple other pros that React Native has is hot reload, which means normally for iOS or Android, you have to hit, after you write some code, you have to hit the run button and it will take like a second to spin up and pull up the simulator and run the whole app again, build everything so you can see whatever little changes that you made. But hot reload, you just hit R for reload and it gives you like a live preview as you're coding what the actual app would look like. So that's one pro. The other pro, obviously you don't have to have two separate code bases. On the other side, it is harder for you to do things like using device hardware. If you want to use a camera or like notifications, it gets harder to do that kind of stuff with React Native, and you'll probably have to write some Swift or Java code in order to do that. And so now Ryan will be talking about the basics of React, and we'll be going through a little tutorial for y'all.
Okay. So before I do that, okay, let me see. All right, so you see that repository? You should go clone that repository and then attempt to have everything set up. I know that's very daunting, so I will give time later to sort of make sure everyone's on the same page when it comes to the setup. But for now, we're just gonna go back. So React Native, by the name, of course, sounds like it's like heavily based off React, and so because of that, it uses a lot of React terms. And just in case everyone here is not familiar with them, I'm just going to run through them really quickly. Honestly, they're like not what they mean isn't important. It's just a lot more of a can you apply them. So I'm just gonna like run through this real quick. So a component is just basically you take a chunk of code and it's just encapsulated in a function. Now, previously in previous tutorials, it might have been like a class as well, but recently React has decided to get rid of classes. I think it was for performance issues or something. I'm not sure, but anyways, so what is a component? So a component is pretty much something. It's like a function, except it's like a visual piece of code. I don't know if that makes any sense. So like a screen would be a component, an entry in a list that renders all neat, nice and neat, which I'll show later. It's also a component, and yeah, that's pretty much the component. And then the two big words, though, like basically the only two other words you need to know when it comes to React are properties and state. So properties, it's like 95% of the time they just shorten it to props, and it's pretty much an object that describes the initial state of some parts of the component, not necessarily all. You only need to really put these in if you want to describe only like certain parts of your app. So for instance, I don't know, the name of this entry on a list so that it shows up and it has that name. That would be a nice place to put a prop. Or perhaps you want to like or perhaps you want to say, oh, this entry in the list has ID so and so. That also might be nice to place in as a prop. And the other big one is really a state. So the state is the condition that certain variables in the component in are at the given moment. And that might not make the most sense. It's kind of a very technical definition. So I'll just give a more practical example. Light versus dark mode. So light versus dark mode, you could think about it as there's like a switch. There's a switch. If it's on, you'll be the app will render in dark mode. If it's off, the app will render in light mode. And based on if the switch is on or off, the app should be able to react to what the input is. So for instance, if you switch it on, that's basically saying I want to be in dark mode. All the components will somehow, I mean, you're gonna have to write the code yourself for it. But all the components, what they should do is they should use their dark mode variants. And if it's off, meaning that I want to use light mode, then the component should make it so all the components are their light variants. And just like a fun piece of trivia thing, basically the component should react to changes in the state, and thus the name React.js. I know, very creative. So what we'll be looking at today, so I just made this very, very simple app. It's literally just like I took the LCS 2020 standings. If you don't know what that is, it does not matter. I just needed data for something, and I didn't want to screw it up by choosing something I didn't know anything about. And so, yeah, real nice and simple. And in fact, we'll be even editing a piece right here because, I forgot to add the remove from favorites button, but it's okay. We can just add that real quick. It's about 10 lines of code. And all right, back to here. So does everyone here know how to use Git? I'm assuming not. So if you don't, pretty much all you have to do is you just go here. And then click this button right here that says code. Copy paste this link. And you just go wherever you want. Let's see. What's a good folder for this? My documents folder. And just do git clone that. And then in this repository right here, this folder, you're going to have all the files that I have nicely written for you guys, including this really quick how to run this thing. And so, okay, run schedule. So now I'm going to give about 15 minutes for everyone to sort of get all this set up. I know it's a lot. I think it'd be very, like, if you just, like, go down this, setting up this development environment thing. Here, I'll just post in the chat again. Just real quick. That'd be nice. Oh, that is the wrong thing. Yeah, and make sure you select React Native CLI Quick Start. And I think in the interest of time, it'd probably be easier if you just did Android, even if you want to do iOS later. iOS, from my experience, requires a lot of tricky, intricate setup, and the files are just significantly larger. So yeah, that's the main reason why. And yeah, and so I'm just gonna give 15 minutes for everyone to set everything up. And if you have any problems, use the nice raise your hand feature on Zoom. But otherwise, when you're done, just hit the yes button. Hit the yes button.
And if you do have any questions, like raise your hand, drop them in the chat, whatever, we'll troubleshoot with you guys.
Can you send out the link to the slides? Sure. Which Node.js should we download? I think what's the git command? It's git clone, and then you just put the repository name here. Which Node.js should you download? I think from my experience, I don't know. I don't really have a certain version. I just kind of just download like the latest one, and it works most of the time. But yeah, I don't think it really matters too much as long as it's not too old, because if it's too old, it might be lacking certain features, and that'd be very bad. Feeling a little lost? What exactly are you lost on?
I'm on the React Native site
Mhm.
to set this up.
Yeah.
And I'm confused, like at the Expo CLI or React Native.
Oh, you should click React Native.
React Native, okay. Download for, I have a Mac.
Yeah, I might have said that earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, it was just like so many things. I was like, ah.
Yeah, sorry. It's just like, yeah, this is like I have to. There's like a lot of stuff I have to like get through really quickly.
Yeah.
Kind of awful. It's okay.
Okay, so but from there, I still don't understand what I do next.
Oh, so if you hit React Native CLI Quick Start and just like oh, I'm on Mac, Windows, or Linux, and just pick Android for now because Android setup is much faster.
Right.
And then you pretty much just like when this is like just like pretty much like click all the links and just download everything required. Like as you scroll down, just like do exactly what it says and it'll work.
Yeah, you probably want to start by following the setup on the React page. And then once you have everything like downloading or ready to go, that's when you like clone the repo. And we'll tell you what to do once you have everything set up.
What is Hyper 5? Is this an iOS thing? Because I've never heard of that before.
Me neither. Looking at it real quick.
Doesn't matter what folder you download Node.js to. It shouldn't matter in theory as long as it's in the path. But like, I would just whatever the default installation is, just go with that. Hyper 5 is a virtualization. Oh, if you're on Mac, just go to this link. And then make sure you select React Native CLI. And then for now, just pick Android. Later, you can pick iOS. It's just because the iOS stuff takes like forever to download. Well, you need a virtual device. If I have a working Android phone here beside me, if you have a working Android phone beside you, there's like additional setup you're gonna need to do, and I think the documentation on React Native has it. I just use a virtual device simply because the setup is easier. And then back to your question. Can you repeat? Yeah, so pretty much you just go here. Make sure you click React Native CLI Quick Start. And just go here and just go down. Just install everything. It just does what it says. Add these lines to your Bash profile or whatnot. And oh, don't worry about this creating a new application. I basically did all this for you past this part. And then you're going to need to do this part as well, preparing the Android device. And if you can't get everything set up in time, it's okay. I'm going to show you like what it's supposed to look like and whatnot, just so like we can just get through as much of this as necessary. And then after, you can just ask us questions on Discord if you're having problems setting up, and we'll be happy to help you. Yes, if you're lost, please ask questions. I know this step was confusing. When I set up my development environment, I had some issues as well. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been doing mobile app for a while, but I've never done React, and it took me like a couple hours. So don't feel worried at all. And we're also here for you after this, so we can help you get started on whatever your project is as well.
Oh yes, you can also private DM us if you're more comfortable with that. How can we check if we have already something downloaded on your computer? I think I have JDK, not too sure. Are you on Windows or Mac? Oh, I don't know then. Anisha, do you know?
Let me see.
We
I'm
have a
not-
question on if you have to install Chocolatey first.
If you're on Windows, yes, because that's Windows Package Manager, I think, right? Yeah, so you're gonna need to install that.
I'm looking up how to check. I think if you go to your command line and type Java space dash version, let me type that in. That should give you the version.
Are we gonna use Android Studio as the IDE? I don't, because I don't like Android Studio, but I just use VS Code. But I'm sure you can probably get away with it because we're not gonna actually be using any of the Android Studio functions. I'm just gonna you can just use it to just edit the code, and then we're gonna run all the commands you're ever gonna need on the terminal, anyways.
Yeah, all your code you can do in your favorite editor, VS Code, whatever. The reason we need Android Studio and Xcode is to build the app onto like a simulator. so you can see the working version. Once you have Android Studio and Node.js installed, that's when you do git clone and the URL to the repo into your downloads or your documents or wherever you want to put it, and pull up that on your command line. And then you're good to go.
So I don't know how much more you guys have like planned besides the setup. Just a quick reminder that we have around like 35 more minutes.
Yeah.
So if you want to get started on the other stuff, and everyone who's like still installing can just come back and watch it later or follow along if you are ready to.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I think in about 5 minutes we're just gonna continue anyways. There's not too much left. I'm pretty much gonna just go through the entire app and just show you just key parts of the app in order to make it so they do stuff. And I didn't get to cover like everything because I wanted to make this fit in an hour. But the React Native documentation is very, very concise, and it has like basically it answers most of the questions you'll ever have. If you go under API or component, you can pretty much just like go down, and it has like, oh, this is how you use accessibility information, or like, oh, this is how you make a QR code or whatnot. Oh, maybe not a QR code, but something like an image or like text or mobile, or like there's like a lot of stuff I didn't get into. Is React Native a better alternative to something like Flutter? So my personal experience using Flutter, I didn't really like Flutter's syntax that much. I think it was really confusing. I'm not sure about better. There's probably some drawbacks to using React Native compared to Flutter that I don't really know much about because I don't use Flutter that often. But just in my personal experience, I think it's easier to use React Native because it's built on constructs that a lot of people, if you've done web development before, that you'll be familiar with. Like for instance, it uses JavaScript. It's based on React, stuff like that. That's the reason why I chose React Native.
We also have a question. If I have a PC, can I develop iOS apps through Expo?
No. If you have a PC, I do not believe you can develop iOS apps. I think you can only develop iOS apps if you're on Mac OS because of Apple licensing reason. I don't know why.
Apple's annoying.
Yeah, Apple is very annoying.
Also, we have an Ultimate Hackathon starter guide. It's linked on the homepage of Hack Texas website, the info site, and it has information on if you want to make like an iOS app, Android app, React Native, whatever you want, and like also how to install like dependencies, API calls, all those sorts of things. There's detailed guides for it. So you can always go to that. And it has like all the resources you need compiled into one space pretty much.
And I know this thing is like there's like so much setup to this. It's kind of annoying, but it's one of those things from my personal experience where once you'll never have to do it again. And like once you have everything set up, you will probably never have to ever mess with it ever again. Even though there's like I know there's a lot of
Setup is
it.
the hardest.
Yeah, the setup is like honest. Yeah, the setup is honestly the hardest part of all of this. Well, in the interest of time, I'm just gonna continue along with the presentation. Don't worry, guys. Well, first of all, this is going to be recorded, so you can go back and watch it. And second of all, we're gonna be on Discord to help you guys out. So keep on the lookout for that. All right, now time to go through this mess I've made. Okay, so as you can see here, I have all this nice data that I'm getting stuff from. Oh, sorry, this is buggy sometimes. So the question is, where am I getting this data from? So pretty much all I did was one night when I was really bored, I just got all the data myself. Yay. But normally what you would do is you would query the server for its data and it return it in a fashion like this. It returns something like this. Now, the problem is getting data from a server and then using it requires a lot of code. And also I have to explain how to even make a server in the first place. And I just thought in the interest of time, I just had to cut it out. If you have any questions about that, you can just ask us about it later. But anyways, we're just going to go through the main parts of it now. There's really only three. This one, and this one. All right. So app.js, this thing's like not like a real component. It's pretty much all it does is just handles the routing for the app. So all it literally does is just say, if I call the navigation method and I specify I want to go to home, it renders the home thing. And if I specify details, it goes to the details thing. That's pretty much it. This is just like all like setup stuff. All right, home. So home is this right here. You see this right here? It has this nice little thing right here. Yeah. So this is the home component. This is all of this. It's actually not that much code. So let's just go through it real quick. Okay. So the most important part is here. So earlier when I was talking about state and how I was talking about like switches and whatnot, this is how you write that out in like a syntax format. So basically what this function is, this is a React function, and all it basically does is you pass in the initial state. So initially I want favorites to be none because I'm going to be adding to it. So I'm going to leave it blank. And then initially I also want I also don't want to filter by favorites because I want to show all the teams. Otherwise, when I load, there's going to be nothing, and that'd be very confusing. And what this does is it does magic. It's like a black box. I haven't looked at the source code, and what it returns two things. So it returns one, a variable. So this is a variable. What this does is this reflects the current state of the variable. So right now, since I haven't done anything, I'll talk about what this is in a second. So this is going to be equal to this array with nothing in it, and this is going to be equal to false initially. However, this function also returns another function, which sounds very confusing, I know, but it doesn't. You don't really need to understand how it works to use it. So what this does basically is it sets the state. So what I can do is I can use this function to modify the state. Now, just like a warning, you might have issues with things with like correctness. If you try to directly mutate the state, it's like, so pretty much you can't, or you should try to avoid just kind of just setting things to values arbitrary, like just setting things straight up to values. You should try to avoid that unless it's true, like unless you know what you're doing and you know it's going to 100% work, because that tends to lead to issues sometimes. And yeah, so let's just go through some more code. So this is just like a bunch of setup again. All this does is just, I'm going to make sure I don't write over the stats bar, and all this says is I'm going to render where the user can actually tap it. That's it. So this is not really important. What's important is right here. So this touchable opacity thing. So React Native has a native button class, but in my personal experience, I've never used it in my life because it's very clunky and very uncustomizable. You can't do much with it really. So I tend to not use it. I tend to avoid using it for that reason. And earlier when I was talking about props, this is an example of props right here. So right now I am passing in JavaScript that will dictate how this thing will look. So style, I pass in styles.button, which is defined down here. And all this does is it's just saying, okay, I want my button to look like a red button because I don't know why. I don't know why, or a green button in this case. I don't know why. I just picked the color green. Yeah, this app isn't the best looking UI wise. And besides that, oh, and here's another example. So here, I just pass in the data. I tell what to do with that data, and then this is just stuff you need for React Native. It's not really that important. You just need to have it. It doesn't really matter what this is, to be honest, as long as it's something unique. And yeah. And then our second thing here, details. So when I tap on this, I go to this thing where it's everything's nice and big, just in case you can't see it. And yeah, there's nothing really interesting on this one, to be honest. Okay, now time to look at. Now I know that's a lot, and I think in my personal experience, I think a demonstration would be nice. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna write some code live. This is very dangerous. I'm actually very terrified. And we're gonna I'm gonna demonstrate the main problem here. So basically, last night I didn't include the remove feature, and I think it's pretty important to have a remove feature. So we're gonna attempt to do this on the fly right now, and hopefully this doesn't backfire on me. All right. So what do we need? I'm gonna need a button that's literally like this button right here. But instead of saying add to favorites, this is remove from favorites. So here I basically already set up the logic right here. All this basically saying is if I want to filter by favorites, I'm going to have it so it's going to say remove, because if this is true, that means I'm on this screen, meaning that I'm displaying my favorites. So meaning that this should remove from favorites from here. And if you can see, if I'm not on filter favorites, so I'm showing everything like so, then it should say add to favorites because logically that makes sense. Okay, we're gonna attempt to do this. All right. So basically what I want is just this button. So I'm just gonna copy paste it. Like so. And then right now, it just says add to favorites twice, which doesn't look right at all. So we're gonna change some things. So here, in this text thing, this text, all it does is just renders text on the screen. I'm just going to change this to remove from favorites. And then I also need to change this because I'm not adding to favorite. I don't want to add to favorites. That's what this does right here. I don't want to add to favorites. I want to remove from favorites. So let's write a function to do so. So I'm going to tell this thing, I'm going to tell the button to call a function called remove favorites, which I'm going to define here. Okay. Now, of course, this code isn't going to work because it's going to get angry and just throw a fit because I haven't defined remove favorites. So let's do that. Or it might not throw a fit. It just might not work or do anything when you hit the button. So let's fix that. Okay. So what I want to do, let's write some pseudocode real quick. Here, I want to find where the team I want to remove is located in this array right here. So first, I need to find where. I need to find where I want to remove. So when I hit remove, it removes the right thing, and then remove it. It's now, of course, it's much easier said than done. So yeah, we're just gonna do the thing. So this requires some like JavaScript voodoo that I looked up last night and just reading of the JavaScript API. So here's what we're gonna do. So first, we're gonna find what team I want to remove, and I'm gonna do it like so. I'm gonna call this find index method, and what this does is it takes in a function where I can specify how where I can specify which thing I want to find, like which item I want to find. here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell it to go through every single item, and what I'm going to say is it should stop. Is that it should stop when per item dot name, which is something I defined in here. See, each entry has a name. So I'm going to tell it to stop once the current item's name is equal to the item I want to remove's name. When these are the same, oh, 1 second. When these two are the same, that means I found the item I want to remove in the array somehow. And then next, I have to remove it. Okay, now this is all right. Now this is going to seem like magic because JavaScript is kind of magic. And here we go. Okay. So pretty much what I want to do is I want to take the array and partition it into two pieces. It's like one before the element I want to remove, and then two after the element I want to remove. Oh, typo. And that way, what happens is, if I just take the part of the array before the element I want to remove, and take the part of the array after the element I want to remove, what it's going to do is it's going to make a new array without the element that I want to remove in the first place. Life is good. And so now to do this, generally, what you would do is you would just like go through. You could just like go through a for loop and sort of just say, oh, if the I equals index, don't add, or like do some sort of subtree thing. But since JavaScript has wacko syntax manipulation things, I can just do this. I can just do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type this out, and I'm going to explain what it does because JavaScript syntax is not beginner friendly, unfortunately. Okay. So what this does, oh, I forgot. So what this does is the following. So this part right here, this is the part of the array before the element I want to include. And this is the part of the array after the thing I wanted to include. And pretty much all that I do is I just take both of them and I just tell them. And what this basically does is I just take whatever's in this array and I just like tell it basically make a new array with all the contents of this in it. And what this does is just says, and after this, I have this comma, and I just basically say, okay, take all the elements in this part of the array and just stick it all in there. And then, hopefully, we're going to run this piece of code. And as you can see, hopefully, I really hope this works. Oh, it works. It removes from favorites. Now I went through a lot of things very, very, very quickly because there's like so much I have to go through. I didn't have enough time. So now we have 15 minutes, and we'll be here to take any questions about setup or how any of this works or just anything in general if you want to have any sort of questions. Okay, let me go through chat real quick.
I think Laura was having some issues. Her command said npm/npx is not recognized. She wants to know if this means that she's in the wrong folder.
Have you downloaded NPM or like Node.js? If you have, maybe you haven't done the npm install command once you're in the main folder.
She says that she has the run, the React Native setup.
What is ... Okay. So ... is basically magic. Basically, all it does is it's just this nice wrapper. I don't know why they decided to call it ... at all. But all it literally does is it takes all the elements in an array and it just basically says put it into this new object. Each element one by one. That's all it does. So all I basically did here was I took this part of the array in this part of the array and basically told it in this new array, you're going to take every single element and just put it in the favorites variable. That's all that does. So basically, it makes a dummy copy of the data you want and stuffs it in a temporary. Yeah, more or less. So is JavaScript the only option? With React Native, yes, you could use TypeScript, but I would not recommend that for performance and the fact that I don't think there's like a lot of tutorials on how to do that. But pretty much you can only use JavaScript and TypeScript, and that's just because TypeScript is just a superset of JavaScript. Yeah, JavaScript is pretty much the only option. Oh, that's right. We're basically done now. We're here to take questions. If you like just want to leave. Oh, your interest is still downloading? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that just takes a while to download.
All right,
think
I'm going to go
right-
ahead and end the stream here. And so if there are any questions, feel free to stay. If not, everyone on YouTube, thanks for watching.